All right, so I think we're ready for our next team. That's team 4. They are called Climb. They're out of Curitiba, Brazil, and we've got Nicholas and Joao on the line. So you guys are good to go.
Good morning. We represent Team Climb. My name is Nicholas Fuchs.
And my name is João Silveira.
Our group is from the International School of Curitiba in Brazil, and we're all set to graduate in the class of 2023. Entering this challenge, we were determined to create a solution that could truly promote change. That's why we decided to tackle the 7th problem statement, consumption and waste. What we acknowledged as a problem was that communities and food vendors need a way to reduce food wastage because of the high number of products that are produced but not consumed.
21% of the world's fresh water is used for producing just the food that goes to waste. This food wastage is responsible for 6% of global CO2 emissions and occupies 21% of landfill volume. This is happening because 1/3 of all of the food produced by humans is not being consumed, which is enough to feed 2 times the number of undernourished people. The tremendous amount of resources used is clear when we look at the fact that throwing away one burger wastes the same amount of water as a 90-minute shower. To put things into perspective, if food waste were a country, it would be the world's 3rd largest emitter of greenhouse gases, only behind the US and China. This occurs because of the staggering amount of gases emitted during the food production process and the composition of organic waste in landfills. Our primary target market includes households, restaurants, schools, and event venues in developed countries. We've decided to focus on this audience because of its higher rates of food waste. For instance, in the US, 40% of food goes to waste, in comparison to just 20% in a developing country such as Brazil.
The solution to all of these issues is WasteLess, a platform that empowers communities to drastically reduce food waste. It also enables food vendors such as restaurants, grocery stores, schools to put their otherwise wasted food products to better use. Let's now see how we provide the tools at 3 levels to succeed with the 3R approach: reduce, reuse, and recycle. First of all, users will have access to convenient shopping lists and inventory management. Here, they can not only track what they're buying, but also access relevant recipes to prevent perfectly good food from expiring. Next up, we have one of our most promising tools, communities. Here, people can be a part of a group of users formed by individuals that either live close by or regularly see each other, like neighborhoods or schools. Inside a community's feed, a user can ask or give a certain product. So for example, let's say John's family purchased too much fruit, or the packaging was more than it would consume. Instead of throwing all of this food away and all of the resources used to produce it, it can be used by Anna's family, preventing that food from going to waste. Finally, we have our section that tackles waste by food vendors, such as restaurants and more. According to the Food Print Organization, 10% of products restaurants purchase is not even consumed. And grocery stores are responsible for 10% of all of US food waste, and that's 43 billion pounds of food annually. Because of strict health regulations in several countries and the ongoing pandemic, giving the leftover food to others for consumption is often unrealistic. This is why we came up with this feature that enables those who want wasted food for composting and biogas production may use it for these sustainable practices, reducing waste going to landfills. Now I'll be going over our platform demo. Firstly, we have the communities page, in which users will see all of the communities they're a part of. Inside the feed, the post will be visible to all the members, containing details about the quantity and observations on how they should pick up the food. Next up are shopping lists and food inventory, where one will be able to add items and remove items, and if the food is expiring, they can donate it on a timely manner using communities. Finally, we have the enterprise waste feed, which enables food vendors to post information with food that can be picked up by individuals or even other companies for composting or the production of biogas.
Ultimately, WasteLess will create a society in which food production is no longer a linear cycle, but circular. By providing the tools necessary to reduce waste, we prevent food from going to landfills and reduce total resources used in food production. But why is having a circular economy so important? According to the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, With this model, for every dollar spent on food, society pays $2 in health, environmental, and economic costs. In this graph, we can see how WasteLess is truly an innovative and unique solution by providing a food sharing network, inventory management, and even connecting food vendors and other organizations with biogas producers. Unlike all other food sharing applications and organizations, such as Food Rescue US, our platform doesn't require drivers and employees to take food from one location to another. Because users will be able to do that interaction themselves, what we have developed is completely original and scalable.
American restaurants generate an estimated 22 to 33 billion pounds of food waste each year. If half of this waste was donated to biogas producers, over 100,000 households could be powered. While 50% of the regulated waste goes to landfills, only 4% ends up in composts. All of this happens because of the lack of a large-scale food sharing network, and WasteLess will serve this purpose. If people are sharing food, there will be a decrease in the demand for food products. This means production and supply will also decline, resulting in various benefits to the environment. With less production, we reduce the amount of cropland, leading to less deforestation, and the quantity of resources used for packaging and transportation will decline as well. Now please stop and reflect on how many times you've bought something but ended up throwing it away. Imagine if all of the waste you've produced over so many years didn't occur, and what would be the impact on the environment? And finally, if many people around the world were able to reduce waste, including someone like you and I. The answer is, using WasteLess, a single active user would be able to reduce around 300 kilograms of CO2 emissions and save over 13,000 gallons of water per year. To ensure a solution is inclusive and accessible to all community members, the first step is ensuring our software is available on multiple platforms and languages. We then plan to establish partnerships with food vendors like restaurants and event venues to generate funds in exchange for the promotion of their services on our own platform. These agreements would preferably be bilateral, meaning these vendors would incentivize their customers to utilize our software, and our clients would be encouraged to buy from these businesses associated with a green initiative. Using the funds from the aforementioned source, we will also advertise WasteLess inside communities like schools and more. Once our platform has raised sufficient funds and recognition, we'll put in place our own transportation system to facilitate the connection between biogas producers and food vendors. To minimize our own greenhouse gas emissions, we plan to run this system on biogas. We hope to create an active community of users and educate people about the roles and responsibilities of consumers. With all of this in mind, we are confident that WasteLess is truly capable of changing the world. And as David Pogwin said, what is innovation if not our ticket to every business interest in the world? It's a ticket to solving the world's problems, the energy problems, the pollution problems, the global warming problems. If it isn't for science and engineering, how will we compete in the new world? Thank you for listening, and we're open to any questions.
Thank you, Team Climb. I'm sure David is excited to have been quoted in your presentation. So points for that. So we've got a couple of questions here. Question from Judge Nancy Brown, and she said, great concept. Sorry, my timer just went up. Great concept. Could waste food be used to feed farm animals as well? How could this be built into the system?
That's a very good point. There are many uses for this wasted food, and what we're trying to do is find the best uses possible. So for instance, biogas is a very good option because it not only takes away organic waste from landfills, but is also generating energy, which is also renewable.
Okay. And Judge Bill Morris, I had a question on how would you incentivize restaurants vendors to use WasteLess?
So our primary way to incentivize these businesses to use WasteLess is because we're going to be providing recognition and attention for these businesses. And as today people are even more concerned with buying from sustainable companies, if they're associated with a green initiative, they'll also be interested in making this partnership with us.
Okay. And from Judge Brandy Worthington, well done. Did you find any existing providers offering similar services during your research?
We talked about this in Originality, and I'm not sure if it was very clear, but what's different about our solution is that it's very scalable because we don't require drivers to take one food from one place to another. So this application makes the connection between each user directly, and also directly vendors, food vendors, to biogas producers and people that are composting.
David Pogue has a question for you, and his question was, have you thought about food waste upstream from vendors and consumers, that is growers, packagers, and transporters?
Yeah, that's a very good point. We're also planning to target food groceries because they're also very responsible for all of the food waste that occurs. And this solution is primarily focused on consumer waste, so that's waste that happens on your households. And for instance, household waste accounts for 40% of this waste. And if you also take into consideration restaurants and grocery stores, our solution tackles almost all of this food waste. But we also acknowledge that there's a problem in farms and also in transportation.
And so we had a question from Judge Megan, and her comments were, interesting presentation. It sounds like the solution is applicable on various scales, communities, as well as large corporations. What's the funding model?
So our funding model is also going to be, besides the partnerships that we talked about in restaurants, it's also going to be based on advertisements. And this is especially good for our platform because we have a targeted niche. So companies will be interested in advertising their products on our platform because it has to do with sustainability and in this area.
Okay. And one last question from Judge Stefan, and the question was, according to you, will people want to make the effort to exchange or sell? It's another take on incentives.
Yes, we were discussing this when we're thinking about communities and how people would be comfortable or not donating food. But we researched, and if a single person was part of a community and this person was sharing food and giving food, they would save, I believe, around over $400 annually. So there's also financial benefit because they don't have to buy such an extensive variety of products because they can rely on other community members.
All right, thank you so much, Team Climb. That was a great presentation.